What's up, everyone? Welcome to Lowered Expectations. Thanks for lowering your expectations and hanging out with me here. I do appreciate it. In today's video, I'm going to be doing some rust repair and patchwork on the bus that I purchased to convert into a workshop. I've taken some viewer suggestions into consideration in editing this video, and I'm going to try to stick to one topic and see my way through before getting on to the next thing. When I purchased the bus, I think at one point in the video I actually mentioned that there was some rust around the wheel wells on the inside. Yeah, they did a pretty poor job of building some stuff on this for rust proofing it. They basically just sprayed bed liner over everything. Bed liner, the idea is that it seals everything. The problem is that it doesn't seal everything. And what it does do then is it allows a little bit of water in. That little bit of water that it allows in gets in behind the bed liner and creates pockets of moisture that then completely corrode everything. Anyway, this is the worst side. This isn't actually that bad because I can cut this out and then it's just a flat piece. The rest of the fender is actually in pretty good shape, so I don't need to deal with that. Hopefully, anyway. Over here on this side, same thing started happening. I wasted a bunch of time last night peeling this stuff off because eventually what's going to happen, I'm just going to cut this out the same as I'm going to cut this one out and just put a flat sheet of metal on there. My father was a big fan of Rust Check. Well, he was a big fan of the commercials for Rust Check. He didn't actually use the product. So I decided to give it a go. It smells quite good and it looks neat because it's a nice red color, but it washes off way too easy. I didn't find it worked at all. You might be able to buy a better product, but I'm going to be using fluid film. And I bought the wool wax kit. You can get other cheaper kits on Amazon. Some of them have good reviews and some of them have horror reviews. I would rather not be one of the people that has a horror review and then ends up buying one of these anyway. So I just bought one of these. This is about 10 times the cost of one of the cheap kits, but I'll never have to buy another one in my life. It comes with 2 wands. One of them is for getting down into cavities and just spraying straight in. And the other one is blocked off on the end. Well, not totally blocked off. And then has little orifices drilled around. So this is for coating the inside of frame rails and little pockets and stuff. So that'll probably get used a whole lot on this bus. I'm gonna try to apply it once a year so that I don't have a bucket of rust instead of a bus in say 10 years. But who knows what 10 years will bring. Hi, Florence. Hey, Flo. Hey, buddy. Hey, buddy. You came running. Hey, you want to get the squirrel? Hey, you want to get the squirrel out the window? Hey, let's get him. Hey, you want to get the squirrel? Hey, look. Who's this? Some of this next clip was used in my last video, but I'm using it here in full length to show you guys all of the rust areas that I will be repairing in this video. I knew that it had rust in the wheel wells here, which is going to be fairly easy to repair. I also found some rust up here, which is a hole clear through. Fortunately, it looks like that will be fairly easy to repair as well because it's all, it's just flat plate, square section stuff, so it's not going to be complicated. No body work, just replacing metal sheet. And then also the front of this ramp area is completely rotted out. This is going to be hard to see on camera, but the bottom is all like this. You can see this is supposed to be square tubing. I just cut this piece of wrought out. This is basically the door jamb or the door threshold. I don't know. Anyway, the edge of the ramp goes against this. I'm gonna try to go to Metal Supermarket, get a couple pieces to make a new one of these. And I thought I'd show you guys inside here why this rusted out. So this is, yeah, the outer piece, the outermost piece. And this is the inner piece. I don't know where this dirt is coming in from, but I can tell you that that is not ideal. Yeah. That couldn't have been good for my saw blade. Let's see what's over on this other side. Kind of the same story. So yeah, I gotta do a lot of cutting to get this stuff out of here. It's gonna be a real pain in the butt, but it's gotta be done. Also, while I'm in here, I guess I'll show you guys this body mount. At some point, somebody collided with something. The body mount's supposed to look like this. And they hit something. And so this one looks like this. So I'm cutting this piece out because it's obviously not straight anymore. It's bent quite a bit there. So I'm cutting this piece out. I'm gonna put a new piece in, and I'm gonna have to get at least one new body mount. I'll probably get two matching ones. I ended up cutting this mount off because it's going to be easier to replace than it is to repair. And as much as it sucked, it actually sucked a whole lot less because I used my Weaver plasma cutter. Comes in real handy. Makes a lot of noise and a lot of sparks, but that came off there way easier than if I was using, I don't know, a grinder or saw or what, but yeah, that went well. You guys remember how this piece was full of junk? It still is full of junk. And I was wondering how it got full. Well, they left it completely open on this side. So there's the end I cut off. Not only did they leave it completely open on this side, but this piece, let's see here if I can grab it. This piece of metal here, not sure why, but it was on here like this, which is basically acting like a funnel to scoop all the dirt and water and mud right down into that tube. I couldn't find the exact mount, so I got some of these, which work pretty well. Yeah, anyway, it fits a little loose in that one, but I think that's probably how it's supposed to fit. I ended up making another mount for here out of this piece of channel iron that I then cut an angle on just because it's way overkill. I cut this angle on here just to remove some material, partly for ground clearance and partly to lighten it up a bit. I know that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but anyway, I am going to weld it on here. Well, it actually went quite well. The weld isn't perfect, but it doesn't need to be perfect. There's plenty of surface area here for the weld to bite, so I'm definitely not worried about the strength. But yeah, turned out pretty good. I mean, nothing to write home about, but nothing to hide either. So now all I need to do, what I need to do is get a couple of holes drilled in here. So I make the hole big enough for this pin to go through on the top and the bottom, and then use these washers. I'm an idiot and didn't film welding in the supports for the ramp. or I did film it and I lost the footage somehow. And now, as you guys can see by looking out the door, it is a winter wonderland. It's quite cold. I've got a rug over the ramp because it's made out of aluminum, which means it's basically a 3-foot by 3-foot heat exchanger that pulls heat out of the bus and throws it outside. The ramp is in place, but it's not actually bolted in. It used basically a self-tapping screw. I've got a couple of them here. The problem is that the holes were eroded away, rusted out, whatever, and I want something a little bit more substantial. So I need to pull the ramp out, which I'm not going to enjoy because, well, it's cold out today. It's 10 degrees below zero. I'm just realizing that I did not film any of the process of working on the ramp or removing it. I just removed it and now it's a different color. It used to be yellow. I stripped all the paint and all the grip tape or traction tape off of the top of it. I also stripped the hydraulic pump and all the actuator mechanisms out of inside of it. So it's quite a bit lighter than it used to be, and it also is no longer wired to the bus. So it's kind of just sitting there right now to plug up the hole. I kind of forgot to mention that part. Oopsie. Okay, well, get my fingers under there and get them pinched. Oh. That sucked. Okay, close the doors, keep some heat in. The last thing that I showed you guys was I had welded this piece in place and I was talking about installing this. So I've got this installed and I welded in new supports. So this is the frame rail, and this is the body support. And so this comes across here on the rubber mounts and then up to the body here, and on the other side goes up to the body there. At the end of these tubes, this was so rusty inside of here. I showed you guys these were packed full of dirt, or it was packed full of dirt on this side and this side. I cut all that stuff out and then I replaced this with angle iron. So after I got that welded in place, the support for the front side of the ramp is this piece of tubing here. I used a heavier gauge tube, but I didn't use two of them. It had one that was attached to the other. The stuff that was here, I could poke my finger through and it was still holding the bus together. So this is a lot better than that. So I'm not worried about it. Louise. Oh. Maybe something like this. Whew. Okay, I didn't lose any fingers. Good news. I'm almost certainly going to undo all of this at some point and redo it better. But for now, what I'm going to do, you guys may have noticed in some of the shots, I put down some of this flooring. The black stuff is actually that matting that you attach together. Just got some of that from Walmart. It actually has decent insulation value, so it keeps the heat in. Anyway, what I'm going to do is use leftover strips of that and some polyurethane caulking. I'm going to glue right over the top of these bolts here. They had this from the factory. Erbach actually had big globs of glue in here as well. And the job that I'm doing is probably better than what they did. So I'm putting caulking down here to kind of just hold the foam in place. Probably don't need nearly as much as I'm using there. And then along the other edge, over the bolts, well, if I can get it there, the tube doesn't want to cooperate. I'm going to come along here. Probably should have cut up the foam first, but this stuff takes quite a while to cure, so it won't be a problem. Alright, put some silicone in along, or not silicone, I always call this stuff silicone. I'm going to put some of the polyurethane caulking in along here to try to keep the fumes at bay. Last time I was doing this I had a helper, and it was a whole lot easier. I miss my helper. Wonder if she misses me. Okay, anyway, get this down in there, see how it goes. Okay, it actually worked out okay. I don't expect this to be a permanent solution, but it should work a little. It's better than what was there, which was nothing. Well, t-shirts. This is as cleaned up as it's gonna be for now anyway. I kept some tools out here that I'm gonna use out here regularly and put some away. So you guys can see, not the cleanest job ever, but there's not a whole lot of glue squirting out anywhere. That's going to stop diesel fumes from getting in and keep some of the warm air from getting out. Over here we got a little bit of glue that got smeared on that wall. As I said, I did put that flooring down on the whole floor of the bus here. It does a pretty decent job at insulating. This is my new editing station. This is where I've been responding to comments and editing and stuff. We got a little bit of snow last night, not a whole lot, but enough to kind of cover the windshield on the bus. I've had the heater on for a while. I just turned the fan off so that you guys can hear me talk. And I just got back from Metal Supermarket. picked up some metal to do repairs on the inside of the wheel wells. I cut both sides out. I've also removed a little bit of stuff up here, and I bought a plate for that as well. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to fully weld these out. I'm going to cut these into shape, and then I'm going to probably every 6 inches do like a 1/2 inch weld, or maybe just tacks every so far. It's not a structural piece, and then what I'll do afterwards to stop it from leaking is just use some glue to seal it up. This doesn't need to be terribly accurate, so yeah, as long as I get some sort of marking on here. As much as I hate the cold, I'm going to cut these outside because it makes a huge amount of dust and just stuff that you don't want to breathe in. This is one of those cases where I probably should get out the plasma cutter, but for doing 2 pieces, it's just not worth the effort. One of the downsides of having a small shop is that you've got to keep everything put away and then take it out when you want to use it. So my plasma cutter is up on a bin on the shelf. If I was doing 6 of these, I would take it out and it would save me a bunch of time. I'm just going to use an angle grinder to cut these plates out. And I'm going to do it outside because it makes a mess and a nasty stink. Lots of metal left there. And looks like we're good to me. I'm about to start welding these panels in place, and I think I'm going to use a magnet on the back side of the panel to maneuver it into place, and then actually use the magnet to hold it to the surface. Out through. Kind of set it, there's a ledge there I can set it on, and then I might have to go scrape away some of the glue. Okay, that fitment is actually really good. I think I'm going to put a few tacks in place. There's a bit of a gap on the sides here, but I think once I get the top tacked in place, I'll be able to get the rest sorted out. Well, there we have it. I am pretty happy with that. I don't think, maybe I will, just so it doesn't rattle around. I was gonna say I don't think I'm even gonna weld it on the outside, but I think I actually will. Don't know if I'll do it today because, well, it's wet and nasty and I don't wanna drag my welder out there. Anyway, as you guys can see, little stitch welds. Not the prettiest thing ever, but I'm gonna get a wire brush, clean it up, and then tackle the other side because, well, it needs to be done as well. I've now got both panels welded in place, as you can see, and I did decide to weld along the bottoms simply because it will stop things from vibrating around. I took the welder outside and did that. It wasn't a lot of fun, but I got it done. I'm going to take a wire brush now and clean it up and then fill in along the grooves and on the outside as well with a little bit of glue so that fumes and moisture don't come through. All right, folks, this is a really good example of how to build something if you want it to rust. So this piece of sheet metal goes over this piece of square tubing, and where they decided to weld it was on the back side here. Now that's a big no-no because what happens is the elements, stuff from outside, comes back underneath the sheet metal, and then it has a place to gather and sit in between this square tubing and this plate. And that's exactly what has happened, and that's why this is all completely rotted out, because stuff can build up in between and then it just all falls apart.
So ideally, what you would do here is actually weld it back here at that seam, and that way stuff hits this plate on the other side and it just falls off. There's no space for water moisture to get trapped in between. So you can see these giant cakes of rust that have been forming in between that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut this back. I'm going to put in a little repair patch, but I'm going to cut this back and actually just weld it along that edge once this piece is removed. I've got a piece of 2 mil steel, or approximately 2 millimeter steel, and I've got it tacked on over here. I'm going to take a pry bar, push it into place, and just keep working my way around. That'll force it into this corner a little bit more. As far as the bottom part, I will probably, I don't know, I was gonna say I'll probably get a couple pieces of angle iron. I might use sheet metal and just tack it into place and then use some glue. Not really sure. None of this is structural. It's all just to stop well, diesel fumes and the elements from coming in. Is this gonna work? I don't know. People on TikTok would make you think so. Heck yeah, I'm happy with that. Look at this. I was gonna hit it with the flap disc and remove all signs of welding, but I'm pretty pleased with that. I'm going to clean up this huge mess now. It's not a huge mess. I'm going to clean up this mess and try to air out the bus, sweep up a bunch of stuff, probably even vacuum. A few days have now passed since the last clip that you guys saw, and it got quite cold, so I put down some of this flooring to act as insulation. It's some of that foam flooring that just clicks together. And I also put some polyurethane caulking on the weld seams to keep diesel fumes and stuff out, and also moisture. It would have looked a whole lot better, but before I put the flooring down, this stuff hadn't cured, and I didn't want the flooring to stick to this, so I covered it in saran wrap, and it left this really weird texture on it. It doesn't really matter what this looks like because it's all going to get covered up anyway. This whole area here had a cover that went over the whole thing, and I probably won't use that same cover. I'll probably get another one made, but yeah, this whole area is covered in anyway, so I'll probably put some more of this foam stuff in there, or maybe put that cover back on and fill it up with expanding foam just to insulate this area. Either way, I'm not worried about it. I'm happy this is done. As you can clearly see, I have the panel welded in place. I think I already showed you guys that. I also put some polyurethane caulking around the outside to seal it up for mostly like exhaust gas and stuff like that, but also moisture. And even though I might have told you guys that I don't like using this stuff in the past, I'm going to be using it here as sound deadening and a little bit of insulation. The problem with this stuff is that you get a little pinhole, moisture gets in behind it, and then it traps the moisture in there and it rots out. So I'm going to be putting this stuff on there, and then once it's cured, I'm going to be spraying fluid film on over the top of it to try to prevent moisture from getting in. It is now a couple of days later, and the rubberized undercoating is all cured up. Looks pretty awesome. All right, folks, after a strange turn of events, I am in the bus alone, and most of the stuff that is in here is out. What is not out is in bins. The reason I'm wearing this mask is because it's very fumey in here right now, because I've just painted the inside of the wheel wells. As you can see from this one, I've used some cardboard to mask it off. On the one on the other side, I wasn't as careful, So I taped off the metal poles there and just went nuts and started spraying, and I'm really happy with the way that it's turned out. I've got the Weaver diesel heater cranked up behind me there, and I plan on keeping it very warm in the bus overnight. I'm going to come back in the morning and hope that this is cured. I am going to leave the back windows open on the bus, a couple of these small windows, and try to let some of the stuff air out instead of just building up in here, but I'm not sure how well that will work.
It is now the next morning. As you can see, snow on the ground outside. It's about -1 Celsius. And quite shockingly, it is actually not too stinky in here. Yeah, I don't smell much at all. I thought for sure it was going to be a week of really nasty, stinky smell, but yeah, these are actually dried up and it's not too nasty in here.
I don't know what I'm going to do in here today. My motivations and mindset has changed a little bit. Ooh, I think I got wire wheel. Yep, I do. I'm going to have to be careful. First thing I'm going to have to do actually is vacuum, because I've got wire bristles from the wire wheel all over the floor. So I think I'm going to bring the vacuum in, vacuum the floor off, and then decide what I'm going to do next. I did get a battery charger from Weaver, 45 amp battery charger, and I think I'm going to mount that. This had like a 5 amp one that was mounted up along the front. If you guys are seeing this video, then it means I spent a whole lot of time sitting behind my computer at the back of the bus, sitting in the seat that I said might never get used. So it's good that I'm putting it to use. This has basically become my home office now. I spend most of my time in the bus, even when I'm not working on it. I spend a lot of time answering comments, responding to emails, and doing all sorts of other things. I quite enjoy it. It is quite cozy. I'm not sure what's going to be next, but I do have some bus footage to edit together. I have some air ride system stuff and some other wiring stuff that I may or may not make a video of. Anyway, that's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.